God,
I love nobody motivates me like HB Baxter singing with his
thank you.
slightly Birmingham accent. I love Scooter.
Oh, he is too
Literally.
much. Do you know what he said once in an interview, which is kind
Yeah.
of a counter, doesn't really help the point that we're trying to make, but
Okay.
he said something so funny in an
Go on.
interview. He said the reason, or the reason why Scooter has been so successful is because they don't progress. They just stay the same.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I would like to welcome everyone to the second episode of my interview series called In Conversation With. Today, I have a great pleasure of being joined with the amazing, multi-talented Belinda Grace Fischer, who was really kind to take some time out of her busy schedule. And today, we're going to talk about creativity and creativity for small business owners. But before we move on to this, I'd like Belinda to just say a few things about her and what her specialties are and what her background is.
No, good morning, Aggie, and thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I am just mesmerized by everything blue that you have going on. So I already feel, I already feel so zen and comfortable. They always say blue is like a calming color and inspires trust. So yeah, hi, I'm Belinda. I'm a marketing translator and copywriter. My language combination is English, German, and I also translate from German into English. Um, what I love about my job is when I get to be creative. So I'm a marketing translator for a reason, and I've also recently gotten more and more into so-called transcreation, which, to put it in really brief terms, it's a combination of copywriting and translation. And to me, about me as a person, I represent many different cultures. So I am half German. I grew up here in Germany, but my mom is American, so I was raised bilingually. And I also spent 6 years living in the UK, and just came back about 9 or 10 months ago back to Germany. I also briefly lived in Singapore, and I like to think that all of those places kind of shape who I am and they shape my personality. And it makes you always leave a bit of your heart everywhere that you go, is what I like to say. And as far as my hobbies go, I love to sing and I love to take pictures. I've gotten into photography more and more. And I guess you could say traveling is also a hobby. So I know that many of us translators have that in common.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think being what you would call a tricultural is it's really quite interesting because I think for many of us growing up in two cultures is quite common, but having that experience of three different cultures is definitely something quite special. Um, so like right from the start, we can see that you as a person will represent like many different points of views and many different perhaps outlooks on life, which is very interesting. um, so in terms of you've mentioned transcreation, and this is something that comes up quite often these days when when it comes to business translation. We can focus on the word creation and creativity, um, because creativity I find is something that is quite of a buzzword, and you see creative solutions, you have to be creative. But to you, what does it actually mean to be creative for you personally?
It's such an interesting concept, creativity, and it is a buzzword. You're right; you do see it all over the place, and I think it's a difficult one because I believe that many people out there don't think that they're creative because they're not crafty. For example, they can't. I don't know. I'm the same. I'm horrible with anything with my hands. I can't knit or like do
I ca-
handicrafts or
Me
anything like
neither.
that. But we are creative with our minds, right? So you don't have to be crafty to be creative. I think that many people kind of confuse those two. Um, so creativity comes in many different shapes and sizes. So I used to think of myself as not being creative, and finally realized that I am, and actually I think that all of us are. There's a quick book recommendation by
Oh yeah.
oh geez, I forgot the name of the author. I'm gonna have to put it in the show notes, but it's called
Okay.
Big Magic, and it's an incredible book. It's the same author who wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
All right.
Elizabeth Gilbert, sorry. And that book is all about what creativity is, and that we all have that spark in us. We all have the potential for those big ideas coming to us, and it's up to us what we do with those ideas. So to me, creativity means expressing your personality and your emotion in some form of art. And again, that can take many different shapes. So in my job, for example, creativity is super important because it can help guide me and find creative solutions for my clients and their translations, but also in my personal life. In photography, for example, creativity is everything. So from framing a picture to the color choice when you're editing, everything has to do with a creative process. And it's something that really touches all areas of our lives. If we really tune into it, I think everyone can kind of feel that and sense that.
I think it's a really, really interesting point, because I quite agree with you. I've actually never thought about how creative can be equated to crafty, because, for example, I'm completely the same. I remember a design and technology classes in primary school, and we had to sew, and we had to learn several types of stitches, and I was absolutely rubbish at it. I just couldn't I couldn't wrap my hand around it. So I actually proudly learned maybe one or two. I learned one stitch, which I have been using my whole life, repairing backpacks and sewing buttons on, and that's all I need. But equally with knitting, I've actually tried knitting, and I've tried crocheting. I can never get this word right. Crocheting or crochet. Again, I'm completely useless. I think it's basically. I think it's just not it's not for me. But for example, I really like DIY, and I really like. I think it's my fiance actually instilled that in me. For example, I'm very proud of this little screen that I have. It actually took like a whole development process, because my room is really, really small and it's really cramped, my office. So we started with an Asda fitted sheet hanging from the ceiling, but I couldn't iron it and it looked really, really scruffy. So then I thought, roller blind. So I actually, this is fastened to the ceiling and it just goes up and down. And now it's just really simple invention, but I'm really proud of it because it just solved a problem that I had. And I think creativity, I think, like you said, it permeates our whole lives. It's actually there, whatever we do. And like, it doesn't have to be a conscious act of sitting down and, painting a picture or taking a photograph, but it can be actually many different things, can't it?
Exactly. And that thing, that rollerblind background that you have, that's a perfect example of how to do a creative problem solving, right? And it's funny because creative problem solving is a skill that many employers look for in when they write their job ads and they're inviting people to apply. That's a perfect example of that. But by the way, just speaking of backgrounds, when you use a fitted sheet as a background for it works really well with black and white photos because it kind of removes all the background clutter, and then you have like this structure that you have in a fitted sheet that you can't iron out those those little, and they give some more interesting visual elements to a black and white photograph. I'm gonna see if I can send you some that maybe you can show them. I did something like that, and it's really cool. So each creative situation calls for a different creative solution, I would say.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that tip. I'll try it. This is quite interesting when you said about creative solutions in work and in jobs, because you could almost think that creativity is the antithesis of productivity, because in order to be creative, you have to not be always productive, right? Because you have to sit down, maybe make a bit of a mess, maybe waste some resources, or maybe just sit and ponder and not actively make anything. But I think for me, these two really go hand in hand, um, because that's a really good question. Why do you think that is for you? Why would you say these go hand in hand?
It's funny that we were saying before how creativity is a buzzword, and so is productivity. Productivity is all, I feel like slowly I'm getting the sense from like LinkedIn posts that I'm seeing and podcasts I'm listening to, that people are kind of realizing that productivity isn't actually all good. Really, it's kind of a, can be a kind of a toxic thing, because we're all talking about, even I'm still trying not to say like the word busy, for example. Like, we're
Yeah.
not really supposed to say
Yes.
oh, I'm so busy, because we all have the same amount of time, and it just means that we're prioritizing one thing over the other, and it's actually not a good thing. We're not, for our mental health, we're not really supposed to strive for being busy all the time, and I feel like productivity is similar to that. It is good to be productive, and when you have a productive day, you feel good, but really, I believe what we should be striving for is effective working. So have a to-do list where you don't have to do a lot, but you do the things well that are really important to you or important for your job. And I believe that creativity can really help with that, because it allows you to open up your mind. I know that in many traditional companies, people would always say things like, oh, we've always done things a certain way. But with that traditional closed mindset, you're never going to be able to welcome new ideas to the company and improve something. So it kind of really helps to let creativity flow, like let employees share their ideas in a meeting, or us as small business owners. We shouldn't be scared to share our ideas and talk to our colleagues and our prospects and our clients, because that's how we can all maybe achieve a better solution or just inspire a new conversation. um, and yeah, that's about it. Just opening your mind, letting creativity in, to also feel some passion. So make it not just about robotic work all the time,
Yeah.
but really bring back that spark, to your work, and allow some passion. And you can only really do that if you allow your creativity to flow.
I think this is such an important message, Belinda, and I think I completely agree, because I think to some extent, maybe when we think of work, in the background we have this idea of a factory, of producing things, of churning things out, of maximizing how many words per minute, how many words per day, and it's all to do with that model of very rigid production line, assembly line. But in fact, I think if you allow a space to doodle, to maybe make a few mistakes. I mean, I remember doing my a BA in English, and I had to suffer through the teaching module, sadly. And I was roped into doing a presentation about mistakes and errors, and that was actually quite a good one for me, because it left this really important message that making mistakes can actually work for you. Because if, like for example, in a creative process, if say you organize a photo shoot and you experiment with lighting, experiment with colors, with aperture, and different settings, or if you choose different times of the day, and in that process, obviously you will make some mistakes, you will make some errors, but that will constitute learning, and that's what will push you forward. I think this is just so important, to give yourself that chance to play and not worry about, have I reached my target for today, have I made enough to feel accomplished, right? Because I think, like, completely agree with the statement on toxicity of the drive, for productivity, and that kind of mindlessness of trying to make enough to say, okay, I've deserved rest, because that's really quite dangerous, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, it is, and I agree with that. I think that we need to have rest in between work, or to kind of refuel, to get our energy back, but also again to let our creativity flow. And I love what you said about not fearing to make mistakes. It is really important. I think it's really kind of astonishing. I only learned that as an adult, that it's kind of good to make mistakes in a way as long as you learn from them, right? So in school, we were always really punished harshly. I sucked so
Yes,
badly at math. I always got really bad grades at math, but I
same.
always just, thank God I
Math, same.
passed.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, you made a mistake and now you have like a bad grade. And it's so, oh my gosh, fear, fear, fear. And now as an adult, if I make a mistake in an invoice, for example, if I'm undercharging, then, oh, okay, that's bad. That's bad, but it won't happen to me again because I'm learning and I'm giving myself that space to learn and to kind of take in all the experiences along the way. And I love that. I think that, yeah, definitely that goes hand in hand, creativity and kind of helping us to get rid of that fear of failure. For sure.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I mean, it's interesting that you've mentioned math because math is one of those things. It used to be kind of my nemesis. I absolutely hated math uh, because of that fear of making a mistake. Oh, you've calculated something correctly, but actually, I think people don't realize that math is creative as well because you can actually use different types of. And I only again learned this as an adult. Um, I took a course in math for my own development, and I actually discovered that not only is it not something to be scared of, but also you can do so many different ways with it and arrive at the same solution. You can use different ways. Say for example, if I want to do a quick calculation whether a particular rate is good for me, is going to be, I can do that, but that's because someone taught me like tricks and you know I made mistakes, I made errors, but I just rubbed them off and moved on. And yeah, but that's a side note. It's interesting again how creativity goes with productivity, because like it's, for me it was quite a discovery when I started using Canva for my yes, we're all Canvicts probably, or Canvadicts, for my social media posts. And the first like few were delightfully awkward, but I actually really got into using it and experimenting and doing things with it, and that actually really gives me a buzz when I can do a little graphic for one of my weekly series, or and it's just that little moment of, oh, I've created something, and it's going to serve a purpose, but at the same time I had fun doing it.
Yes, that's important part, playing with all the colors and the fonts and really making you enjoy the process. And it's okay if you screw up. You can
Yeah,
always make another one next time.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So probably some of maybe our viewers and listeners know about Belinda's singing career or singing passion, but I'm actually also a singer and a vocalist. This is something that we probably bonded quite strongly over. This is
Yeah, we
something we
did.
have in common. It's actually quite amazing how many translators and interpreters are also musicians, or working musicians, or they have like double majors in music and language. But singing is just something so incredibly powerful. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how it, for example, for myself, enhanced my work and my performance. But first of all, I'd like for you to, Belinda, to tell us a little about your adventure with singing.
Oh, oh my gosh, it's the best thing ever, isn't it? It's so much fun. It's not a career for me by any means. I've my performances are limited to like karaoke nights and what else, like
Yay.
little family and friends. I wouldn't, I don't have the, or at least as a child and as a teenager, I never had the confidence to like go on stage and perform. But I found peace with not doing singing as a career. I actually love the idea of having singing as my passion and a hobby. I don't think that everything has to be a career or a money-making way, so or a method. So I love it. It's just something that I've been doing since I was 11 years old. And the funny
Wow.
thing is that I
Gosh.
started singing with my best friend at the time, and also my sister. We all sang together, and it was the first band that I ever loved. They're called No Angels. They're a German band, and they were big at the time when I was like 11, 12, and then they
I remember
disappeared.
them.
You remember
I remember
them?
them.
they, that's really cool. I didn't know that they were big outside of Germany, but they're actually back. Like they're doing a comeback tour this year, and I'm gonna go see them in Leipzig, and I can't
Wow.
wait. With my sister and with another friend of mine from the UK, so I can't wait for that.
Oh
So
wow,
that's
that's awesome.
they really got me started with singing. I sang along to all the No Angel song, and then it became more and more serious, and I discovered that I have a talent for it, and more importantly, I just love it so much. And I eventually, when I was, oh gosh, how I'm 29 now. So when I was 27, I finally went and got my first singing lesson in the
Wow.
UK. One of my neighbors turned out to be a singing instructor, and I'm still
Okay.
in touch with him. He's fantastic. He helped me so much with breath control, with confidence, with holding notes. And I have a quiet singing voice, so he really kind of helped me project a bit more. And yeah, it's just been incredible. The reasons basically why I love it so much is because it's again an outlet for creativity. It's for me, it's also a type of therapy. I always feel more at ease and calm after a singing lesson, or when I did choir. I did choir in school for 3 years, and then I joined a women's choir in Manchester for 2 years when I lived there. We did
Wow.
some performances as a choir for like big charity events and stuff like that. Um, and it was just, there was always this buzz that came from a lesson or a session with them. And also, just like we were saying before when you and I chatted about this, it's about honing a skill. Like even if you're just doing it for yourself, because that's really all I'm doing. I'm only singing for myself. I have a YouTube channel, but I don't promote it in any way. I just do it
Not
because I
yet.
want to do it. I mean, you can find it. I have it linked somewhere if people are interested, but I'm not like, check out my whatever. Like I'm not like
Yeah.
that. It's just
Yeah,
something
yeah.
I really enjoy doing, and I have friends and family who love it and who are always excited about um, a new cover that I do. But it's just that thing of getting better at something, honing a skill, and it's a really really beautiful feeling to work on something that you enjoy and getting better and better and better at it, like from a technical point of view. So. Look at the stuff, isn't it neat? Wouldn't you think my collection's complete? Wouldn't you think I'm the girl who has everything? Look at this trove, treasures untold. How many wonders can one cavern hold? Looking around, you think, sure, she's got everything. So what about you? Why is singing so important in your life? What do you love about it?
So my adventure with singing was completely different than yours, Belinda, because it sounds for me it sounds like it's been your passion, something that you've enjoyed doing. And to start with, I absolutely hated singing. When we did music as obviously a compulsory subject in Poland, and by the way, you have music all the way through primary school in Poland and all the way through secondary school. This is something quite I think unusual. And I remember I pretty much had the same voice my whole life, the way I have now. So it's probably slightly lower than like your average woman's voice. But the thing is, we used to sing those very plaintive songs about scorned maidens who don't have enough dowry to be married, so they sit and cry by the river, and that is exactly the vibe of a Polish folk song. They were very, very strange, but obviously because it's part of the culture and curriculum and whatnot, we had to sing them, and I absolutely hated every minute of that experience. I remember my dad dragging me to my upstairs neighbor. She could play the clarinet, so she played the melody for me because I couldn't read notes, because my brain just refused to learn how to read notes. And he says like, now go listen to this song, listen, because you have to sing this to pass the subject. It was absolutely horrendous. And then when I was 14, my dad passed away, And I remember it was very difficult for me to deal. It was quite unexpected. It was very difficult for me to deal with the trauma. So I found a lot of solace in watching Viva 2, aka the best musical channel. I think there's actually it should, you might not remember it because I'm a tiny bit older than you, but it was my favorite channel. I used to watch it religiously all day long, and there was really good music in Viva 2. And I used to love listening to R&B and soul, and I would
Mhm.
sing along and practice. And then music has always been a big part of my life. I love soundtracks to films.
Mhm.
I have a very carefully crafted play. Again, this is maybe something that people don't realize is an act of creativity when you put together a playlist. For
Oh
example,
yeah.
your good mood playlist or reflective playlist,
Mhm.
or I have 3 playlists just for running and just for
Oh wow.
exercise.
That's great.
Scooter, I don't know if you,
Ah, oh my god.
I love, nobody motivates me like H.P. Baxter singing with his
HP.
slightly Birmingham accent. I love Scooter,
Oh, he is too
literally.
much. Do you know what he said once in an interview, which is kind
Yeah.
of a counter the doesn't really help the point that we're trying to make, but
Okay.
he said something so funny in an
Go on.
interview. He said the reason why Scooter has been so successful is because they don't progress. They just stay the same.
Yes. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Because when you listen to a Scooter song, you know what's gonna happen. There will be, motivation to sweat and dance, and that is exactly what I need. If I'm doing my 10K and I really can't be bothered.
Wow.
But yeah, it's just been such a big part of my life. I had just finished my studying for my exams. I think I just sat my deep trance, and I thought, wow, Aggie, you've been working really hard. Why don't you just go and do something for yourself? And I used to walk past this musical school, and they advertised half an hour of a free musical lesson. And I remember I booked the lesson. They were really nice, and they were like, oh, you can come in and have a look and see whether you like it. And I remember walking into the small room with my teacher, who he's a compere and an MC as well. So he's got a lot of presence, mustache, handlebar mustache, waxed, very powerful voice, Danny. A little bit camp, but kind of like in a fun way. And he says to me, oh, well, first of all, I need to see if I can teach you. And I'm like, oh. And then we did a few scales and we did a few sounds, and he goes, yeah, I can teach you, and then it just kind of progressed from there. I changed teachers because Danny sadly had to leave, and I've been with my current teacher, Terry Birtwistle. I will link her band and her music in the show notes because she's phenomenal. She's like a 10-year musician. She started when she was 17. She's 20, 27, 28 now, and she's extremely talented. We always joke that there isn't an instrument she can't play.
Oh wow.
For example, when I rehearse with my band, and if we were missing a bass player, she's like, "All right, I'll do it for you." And I'm like,
It's awesome.
"Damn!" She can play everything: drums, electric guitar,
Wow.
piano. So that's Terry Birtwistle. So yeah, I've been learning with Terry, and I think as far as decisions go in my life, I've made some mad ones, but this is probably one of the best ones I've done in a long time,
Mhm.
because learning to sing just unleashed so much confidence in me and so much self-assuredness. It's quite incredible, really, and it's been transformative for me because not only, like you said, it's a really great way to get the buzz
Mhm.
and to get that boost, but also knowing that you have the confidence to come out on stage and sing for like 100 people, or as in my case, in my band's case, will be in 2 weeks, we'll be playing for a 500 strong
Wow.
audience. So that's going to be a different thing.
Hello, Blackbird! I said hello, Blackbird! Take it away, Kim. Birds flying high, you know
different experience altogether. But yeah, I think, and if you think about it, there's not many people who actually have like the confidence, like you and me, to showcase your singing, to invite people, to that world of yours and share your creativity. And that, I think that itself is a very powerful way to remind yourself that you have that confidence, and that strength, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, you just have to find ways to bring it out of you, and it's really amazing what's in, like, confidence and creativity all can be. It's in every one of us. We just have to find something to unleash it and to
Absolutely.
actually work on it. And in our
Absolutely.
case, that was singing. Definitely, I as a child in school, I was incredibly shy, and I think singing was one of those things that really helped me come out of my shell. And I think it's amazing what you're doing, and I can't wait to
Oh, thank
see and
you.
hear some of it. Playing in front of so many people, that's really, really something. It's a big step.
Do you know, and it's just amazing how being in a band, because I mean it's very different when you do it as a one-off, because I've done it as a vocalist with Terry accompanying me on the piano. But when you play in a band, and we basically come from lots of different backgrounds. Our keyboard player is actually from the Netherlands. Shout out to Kim Segers. She's actually a translator as well, so a small world. She translates from Dutch. And we have people from 60 plus, 30 plus. We have a father with 2 children who also do music, and we have a church musician. But when we all come together, it's just quite magical of what we create when we come in for a 2 or 3 hour rehearsal session. It's quite incredible and quite unexplainable, just how you can be in tune with other people and be sensitive to other people. And that's probably something that you maybe don't get that much of if you're a freelancer, if you're your own boss, your own woman. But yeah, that's something I really learned to appreciate and cherish. That kind of feeling of togetherness and purpose that you get when you perform music with others.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, even just with a singing teacher or a choir, I really miss that. I've just moved to a new place, a new city. I have to find all of that again.
Absolutely.
Like finding a choir and a new singing teacher. Can't wait. I think when you and I had our chat, like our one-to-one coffee chat, that kind of inspired me to start looking and
I'm
start
so
that
happy
up
to
again.
hear that.
Yeah,
I'm really
definitely. Yeah, it's a little bit trickier in a smaller city compared to Manchester, but there'll be something around.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find something. So maybe just to round it off, how about we maybe put together a few tips for people who want to unleash that creativity, who want to be, to be creative in their everyday lives, and maybe yearn for that bit of a outlet / release. What would you recommend?
I have 3 top tips for this one on how to be creative. So the first one it's a bit of a weird one, but so is creativity. So there you go. So find a time or a way when big ideas come to you. Find out when those moments happen, when those ideas strike. So I'll give you an example. For me, it's when I'm brushing my teeth. I don't know why. I've spoken to other people, other translators on LinkedIn about this, and I think many people say that they have big ideas when they're in the shower. There's even on Reddit, if you know Reddit, there's like a subreddit called Shower Thoughts or something.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's a common one for me. It's when I'm brushing my teeth, so that I always get really good ideas then. So find out what that is for you. That's number 1. Number 2 is I always say this: go for a walk, listen to a podcast or listen to a music playlist, like Aggie was saying before, because even if it's not directly related to what you're listening to, something in that podcast or in that music playlist will spark something in your brain. It'll get the ball rolling, your thought process going, and that'll help you take action in some sort of way. So for example, when you come back home, you might feel inspired to start researching on your next professional or personal project. And the last thing is number 3 is when you have an idea, make sure that you always have a way of capturing it. So even if it's like I don't know, like a list, a physical list, a
Yep.
journal, or even the notes app on your phone. Just make sure that you can record your thoughts or your idea, because you never know if and when you might need it later. And we all know there's nothing more annoying than having an amazing idea and then
And
it's
then it just
gone.
it's
It's
gone. You
just
don't know
gone.
where.
And then you wake up one night and like, there it is again. Let me write it down. So just save yourself the trouble and the sleepless night and just write it down right away. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those. I would also add that it's very useful to think about everyday things in a creative way. So, for example, if you are plating up food, even adding a little bit of a garnish, that's an act of creativity. Or if you are, if you send the same email over and over and over to remind someone about payment, or if you send a cold email, try and phrase it differently, because even doing everyday things in a tiny slightly different way might kind of spur you to go on to the next step. And also for me, running is a great way of thinking creatively. For example, if I have a problem to solve, I just kind of put it at the back of my head, and I go for a run, and I usually come up with an answer. But I think leaving your house, for those who ask, live in our offices, is a great way of basically energizing your mind and kind of refreshing it. Like I said, walking is fantastic, and there's all many different ways. I will be actually putting some links to very easy ways of becoming creative in your everyday life in the show notes. So this is something that we wanted to share today with you. Thank you so much, Belinda, for joining me. I'm absolutely, delighted that we had this opportunity, and I'm sure our viewers will be also extremely pleased to be able to get to know a bit of more about you, and me, and see how we showcase our creativity.
Yeah, I bet it'll help them definitely. There's some
Absolutely.
valuable stuff. And also, thank you so much for having
Thank
me. It
you.
was a real
That's my
pleasure
pleasure.
to be
Thank you
here
so
today.
much. Thank you so much, Belinda, and hopefully I'll speak to you soon.
Very soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye,
Cheers.
Aggie.
Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.